And let's give it a try. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this very first time ever, the Simple Growth Business Podcast. I'm Dan Ralphs. This is Aaron Suttenfield, and we're kicking off something that we have no idea if anyone is ever going to watch or pay attention to, but we're doing it anyway because we care about small business across the country, especially service businesses across the country, and we're really curious about how we might be able to help them. So Aaron, welcome to our very first inaugural edition of the Simple Growth Business Podcast. I don't even know if we're 100% decided on the name. That's what we're calling it right now.
Sounds great. I'm excited.
So I wanted just to introduce it this way. So I don't know how long ago it was, Aaron, you and I are sitting in a beach house in Wilmington, North Carolina. And we were talking about our experience because you've been coaching small business lawn care companies for a long time because you've run and been very successful in the lawn care space. You have a small company in Charlotte. And we were talking about like some of the clients that you bump into that are like these service-based companies, these lawn care companies that are like 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, and they're just kind of a mess a little bit. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So we, at Simple Growth Systems, I was helping companies build out their rate matrix and their services and helping them use a software to manage their business better. And we kept seeing that when we were kind of done helping them with sort of some basic functions or some processes, that they really wanted to talk more about their businesses. They really were, lost entrepreneurs. And we talk a lot about entrepreneurship being a lonely place because typically it's just the owner, or maybe there's a partner, but they're kind of lonely. And I just could sense that as we were working with these companies, they wanted more. Yeah. It
is super lonely to be a business owner. Like you have to tell the story. You have to tell them about the time when you're like, maybe we shouldn't say this in public, but you're like, I don't even go to certain parties unless there's another business owner there. Like I need someone, I need another business owner or else I can't have fun at a party because I don't know how to talk to normal people, right? I feel that way sometimes too. I'm like, people are like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm a business coach and I help companies, and they kind of glaze over as if being an entrepreneur is the most boring, confusing world, right? It's like we live on another planet almost.
I know that I have to kind of watch myself in social settings to not get really excited about business and talking about business. Most people that are, mid-level managers or managing a little division in a large corporation. I've got a great friend of mine he runs a pretty nice little group at Wells Fargo in Charlotte, and he's a CPA, and he's like, man, I wish I could get as excited about my spreadsheets as you do about your business. And he's someone that for seriously 27 years, he has one friend that has always been, he just loves talking to me about my business, and he genuinely is interested, but they're few and far between. And I get
most people don't. And so that's one of the reasons why we're here. We recognize that most people aren't as nerdy about business as we are. Like literally Aaron and I are sitting at a Charlotte Hornets game, and we just basically talk business during the entire game. It wasn't a very good game, but we were sitting there talking like the entire game. We had good seats. We were just sitting there chatting business because we're nerds for business. Like we absolutely love it. It's all we want to think about. It's all we want to talk about. So what better way to do that than starting a podcast where we actually can give you some really sound business advice? And so we were sitting there in North Carolina. We were at this beach house, and we were asking ourselves the question, what are the fundamental steps? What are the fundamental elements that if we were to meet any business owner and we were to say, how do we get that business owner from 300,000 more or less? And the reason 300,000, because that's like right when it's not that you're not a real business before that, but that's like when you're finally got your first employee or two, and you're finally starting to get your head out of being just a solopreneur, and you're starting to really run a business. So somewhere around that $200,000, $300,000 mark, where you're like, okay.
That point when you're like, I can't really take Venmo anymore. I need you to I need to take your credit card. cash is fine, but like I need to start reporting more things. I got to pay payroll taxes. I gotta, I got to do workers' comp and all these things that are real business things. I have to get like business insurance, and it becomes less of a side hustle and more of the hustle, right?
It's
Like
that's the right where we get up. Like the transition from side hustle to main hustle is where we want to talk to you. And so if you're at that spot or anywhere beyond that, probably anything past 10 million, we won't have a lot of good, wise things to say to you, but anywhere between like, all right, it's finally become my main hustle. Maybe we should call this the Main Hustle podcast, right? Where it's like, this is now my main hustle. But like when we finally got to our main hustle, and now it's like, all right, we're going to try to grow it. And we ask ourselves the question, what are the fundamental steps of how to go from it barely becoming our main hustle to it being $1 million company? And that's what that's what we're going to be talking about throughout this podcast. And it's going to be the major theme of all of the different things we talk about is how do we make our main hustle? How do we turn that into $1 million company or better? And we won't talk too much about once we get to 1 million plus. We're going to spend most of our time on the Simple Growth Business podcast. I don't know, Main Hustle podcast might be better, but we're going to spend most of our time talking about that growth from point A to point B. And we literally got together in a room and we asked ourselves the question, if we were trying to outline it, what the steps would be. And we came up with 5 fundamental steps. 5 fundamental steps. So I thought, Aaron, today on the podcast, it'd be cool if we just talk through those 5 fundamental steps. So starting at step 1. So Aaron, if you want to introduce step 1 of our 5 fundamental steps. Again, if you're in that category where it's like, it's my main hustle now, but I do not know how to grow this to 1 million. Like where do we begin? What's step 1?
Yeah. So step 1 is just finding 4 hours each week. Each week, find 4 hours where you can, separate yourself from your company, from your, phone goes off. You treat this like you are unavailable. So detach from, social media, phones, from the company. You need to have 4 hours dedicated to work on the business. And I think it's important to kind of define what does own the business mean. I'll tell you what own the business is not really quickly. It's not selling something. It's not producing something. And it's not solving problems that come up from producing or selling. So, there would be things like reconciling your books or, I've coached a lot of companies on the very first couple of calls. They'll say, I'm cash poor. And I look and they haven't invoiced for work. Right. And so accounts receivable, invoicing, hiring. What's your strategy for hiring? Yep. Probably hiring is the number one thing we've heard about since 2019, 2020. How are you going to, what's your process for that? What's the strategy?
So it's all of that stuff, right? It's all of the
budgeting,
all of the stuff that isn't selling and fulfilling. It's all the stuff that isn't selling and fulfilling. And the truth is we all have 4 hours. Every person in the history of the planet has 4 hours a week. And I like to say, you have 4 hours a week because if your tire went flat, you would fix it. You have 4 hours. And so what's funny, and I don't know why this is, Aaron, maybe it's like the question pops to mind, why don't we? I think every business owner that I've ever talked to, if I said, hey, should you be spending at least 4 hours a week working on your business, not in your business? They would all say, yeah, I definitely should be. And yet, for the most part, if I ask how many actually are devoted, committed 4-hour period, it's not as many as like, so why don't we spend 4 hours a week?
Because we're that much. We're technicians. Like most of us got into this because, we like from a lawn care perspective, right? We're talking mainly lawn care here now. So, I probably started in this business either because in my case, it became a summer job that became a career, out of necessity. If you don't do well in college, you got to find another avenue. So, or maybe there was someone who really excelled at a lawn care company or landscape company, and they became a leader in that company. And they're like, you know what? I can do this. I can do this on my own. And so we kind of get here in 2 different ways, both of which require us to be really good in the field, right? We don't start lawn care companies rarely without knowing something about the technical side of lawn care, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's how to stripe a lawn really well,
Yep.
or how to fertilize a lawn, or how to landscape, or they love plants. They
Yeah,
know
it
plants.
stays your side hustle if you never figure it out. It never becomes your main
Right.
hustle if you can't figure
Right.
those things out. Yeah.
And so we all are most comfortable in that. And I can kind of tell the maturity of the lawn care business owner based on the things they talk about most.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with this, but they tend to talk about what type of mower are you purchasing, or some of the less mature businesses will focus on, man, what kind of blades are you running, or some of the things that are honestly, in the scheme of things, aren't going to scale your company.
And the truth is,
they're important.
I think you're right. I think because we start in the technical detail of the business, when it comes time for us to actually take our side hustle, make it our main hustle, and then make our main hustle like a legitimate business, that's $1 million company. Like, I think sometimes we don't even know what to spend our time on. It's like, I don't know how to do that. And it reminds me, I don't know why I'm sharing the story, but it reminds me of a buddy of mine who was playing tennis with his wife. And his wife kind of like said, "Oh, I don't really like tennis." And his response was, "Do you know why you don't like tennis? Because you suck at it." which
Yeah.
for the record is not the right thing to say to your wife when you're trying to introduce her to a new hobby. But there's sort of some truth to that, right? Like, the reason we don't want to spend the 4 hours, the reason we don't like discipline ourselves to like get in front of a computer screen and build systems or whatever that 4 hours might need us to do, is because we suck at it. Like, we just don't know. We're just not very good at it. Do you think that could be it? Right?
100%.
Why we don't spend our time there?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the days when I was starting a company and I was making a little bit of money. I didn't know what a P&L statement was. I didn't know what the balance sheet was. I mean, I knew they were accounting things, but I didn't really know, like, when I was looking at it, it was, like a monkey doing a math problem. Like what is this stuff? And so I didn't spend a lot of time looking at it. I certainly wasn't concerned about balancing my books every month, or, those types of things. I didn't know how to look at those things and project, if my pricing was correct or not, and so, hiring, like, I have a job. Here's how much I pay. You want to come work for me? So those are all things and time that we have to spend on those processes, like a sales process. I wouldn't even know where to start with that stuff.
So again, my early days. Step one is for us to go, we got 4 hours. And I'm going to sit down in front of a screen, even if I don't know what to do, even if I'm not good at it, even if I suck at it, I'm going to sit down for 4 hours and I'm going to start working on things to make my business better. 4 hours a week. And if it's like, I don't know what to do, step one is figure out what to do. Right. If you like, and we'll talk about what the other steps are and what you should be spending your time on. But just the fact of the matter is, we can't, like, there are two core resources required for us to grow a business. And the first one is time. Like, one of the reasons we stay treading water and we stay pretty much where we are is because we spend no time improving and making our business better. Like, we just don't spend the time there.
I'll tell you something, Dan, that makes me think about this, that I think is relevant here, is sometime maybe about 11, 12 years ago, I was a huge sports fanatic. I mean, I watched sports. I invested a ton of energy into that.
You got the dream team be right behind you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still love sports. Okay. But there was a point at which the Carolina Panthers owner at the time was going to basically give away the year, because he was in charge of renegotiating the players' cut of the revenue share. And he knew that they were going to be in a position to be a more favorable share for the owners. And he basically gave away a season. He didn't sign any players. He waited to sign players till the next year. And I remember thinking, that's pretty smart, number one, on his part. But as a fan, if he doesn't care about this year, why do I need to watch this? And it kind of dawned on me, like, by the way, I really don't make any money. My family doesn't become better because of the time I invest in sports. If I really invested this time into things that made me a better person or a better company, or, were invested in something that would actually pay me back later, like how much better would my life be? And I think that we all invest our time in something. We all have the same 24 hours a day. And I think successful people, my son is a really accomplished guitar player. He plays guitar 3 or 4 hours a day. I mean, really, literally. I mean, that may be on the low end. And he also just started teaching some younger kids how to play guitar, and he said they just don't want to practice, and so we have to use our time wisely. And business owners don't have enough hours in the day. I used to tell my wife, she's a teacher, and I'd say, you might be able to accomplish some of the things that you're supposed to at your job today. I have no chance of accomplishing most of what I need to in my job today. And so I think successful business owners are very careful with their time, but they also prioritize their time correctly.
Yeah.
They work on the biggest things. And good business owners learn how to delegate the things that they can pay someone to do. We used to talk about, I remember back in the day talking about, work on $1,000 an hour ideas if you're the owner, and delegate those $20 an hour things.
The $10 an hour. Nobody, you can't delegate $10 an hour anymore.
Yeah. It used to be $10 an hour, 20, right? So
step one is that. Step one is like, hey, go cut out 4 hours of your week and sit down. And if honestly, don't move on to step 2 until you figure that out, until you figure out how to discipline yourself in that way. Because the truth is, you're never going to make it to be $1 million company if you haven't learned to discipline yourself in the area of time. And it really is a requirement. I've seen it done a bunch of times. I remember one woman, she said, hey, listen, I just told my husband I'm out of commission from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Wednesday nights. I just do not have, don't plan on me being around from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
And listen, we're not saying 4 hours at one time. It could be 1 hour, 4 days.
I recommend at least a 2-hour block.
Break it up.
I recommend at least a 2-hour block, because it can be hard, right, to get a project significantly underway, if you're doing like 20-minute sprints, but 4 hours, that's all we're asking. And it can't, I know another business owner who he literally would send everyone home from his business on Friday afternoons at 3 p.m. He called it early release Fridays. And that way he could finally be alone and work on stuff. So whatever it looks like for you, it doesn't need to be fancy or special, but we just need 4 hours. So step 1 is the 4-hour rule. You have to put in at least 4 hours a week if you want to grow a business that's not fulfilling or sales or the basic operations of your business. You need 4 hours a week. Step number 2. So once you have time, the next thing we're going to focus on is money. So the next thing we're going to focus on is money. So once you have some time to get your ducks in order, the first place we're going to focus is on your money. And that step number 2 is we have to get our personal and business financial house in order. And it doesn't mean our business and personal house has to be a nice house. It just has to be an orderly one, so that we can actually know what's going on in our business. Because at the end of the day, our ability to build our business is really dependent on cash. It's the lifeblood of your business. And so if we don't have clean arteries for us to pump our blood around, we're going to have a business heart attack. Some people, have had business heart attacks where literally, I was chatting with a guy the other day who said, I'm having a business. He didn't say this, but he was having a business heart attack. Why was he having a business heart attack? Because he owed $250,000 in taxes that were unpaid, and the IRS was showing up. You may have a business heart attack. Didn't you have one the other day that was having a business heart attack because he hadn't paid his, what was the story?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, when we're small or, we're running a business, we might have, we might put guys on a 1099, and at some point they become employees. So yeah, we're working through a situation where we've got to figure out, how do we overcome a situation where we have a pretty large business running a lot of 1099 labor, and the Department of Labor in his state is auditing his company. And so
we call that a business heart attack, right? It's like, holy cow.
It's a big business emergency. Yeah. And, they've done an awesome job with this business, and we're hoping that this situation is something they can work through. We'll see, we'll find out. But yeah, understanding and having a good understanding of the finances of your business, and of just your break-even number. Like, what is it? Dan, we were talking at a conference in Wilmington. Site One invited me to speak there, and show of hands, who knows their break even number? I mean, no one knows their break even, and they'll say, well, we kind of know like what it costs, what our labor is per hour. It's like, no. Like, what does it cost your company per hour? And then, it's pretty easy to figure that out. Doesn't take long, but then we got to go to that other sheet, that balance sheet. We got to understand, well, how much debt do you have?
Yeah.
Very few of the companies we're coaching are debt free. Some have gone into some form of debt. So we need to balance, we need to pull that number over. No one, very few that we coach, I shouldn't say none, but very few that we coach have a budget. What is their goal for this month in spending?
And so at the beginning is just getting all of those pieces in a row, getting all your ducks in a row financially. Now we could, and we will spend a lot of time talking about what the details of a nice, healthy profit loss look like, what the details of a nice, healthy personal budget look like, business budget looks like, how do we account for debt and all those things. But if I have my 4 hours and I'm breaking away on a Saturday afternoon and I'm just hiding up in a coffee shop somewhere, and I begin by opening up my books, and I make sure that we're healthy and clean. Now, sometimes this means that we have some hard decisions. Like right away, we might start to discover things within in our family life or within our business life that are hard. Because at the end of the day, a small business can't afford an extravagant CEO. It just can't. You can't afford to be an extravagant CEO at the level of a small business. And if you're living an extravagant personal lifestyle, like you got to cut it, because we need that $300 you're spending on your jet skis a month. We need that in your marketing budget. We need that $680 car payment that you're paying for that nice truck. We need 480 of that in your marketing budget. So like sometimes the reason our business is handcuffed is because our personal finances aren't in order. And so at least for a little while, we have to like cinch up the belt personally and professionally so that then we can go, spend extravagantly later.
Yeah.
What is it Dave Ramsey says? Like live
like no one else. So later you can live like no one else. Or if you live like no one else today, you're probably going to live like no one else later, because, if you're doing wrong things today, you're going to have pain later. If you do right things today, you're going to avoid the pain. So you're going to have pain or sacrifice at some point. And I think, we talk about, the personal finance. I think it's important to talk about this for a second. A lot of times I'll coach someone and I'll say, they want to make a big change, or they want to make a pretty aggressive change in their business. And a lot of times that means reducing revenue for a period of time to build revenue somewhere else, right? Like we learn, and we'll talk about a little bit more of this in step 3, but I think the reason it's important to understand personally where you stand is, are you the breadwinner of this family? Are you the person who makes the majority of the money for this family off of your business? Well, then if you're going to make a big change in that, we've got to be careful. We've got to make that slowly. We've got to,
it's almost like a business break even. And then there's a personal break even. It's like, hey, what is our personal break even number? Meaning how much money does my family need to pay all the bills and live and eat and survive? And once I figure out that kind of personal break even, then I know what my business, I know the flexibility I have now to build my business up or down, or remove that division, add this product, take on this debt. But until we know those numbers, that like little personal break even number, we don't know how to kind of move forward.
Yeah, we don't know how to coach you. And then, I've had clients who say, my wife makes 3 times what I do. And, I'm thinking, well, why are you working? No, but, she makes 3 times what I do. So I can rip this Band-Aid really quickly, and we can transition really quickly to this other, model that we want to run, which we know has the ability to scale faster, scale better, have a lot of advantages there. The other thing I'll tell you too is like, I'm 27 years in business, and I own and operate a lawn fertilization company in Charlotte, North Carolina. But I haven't always owned and operated a lawn fertilization company. For the first 15 years of my company's existence, we were kind of that we were a mess. We did everything in the industry.
Wait. Don't skip to
And
step three yet. Don't skip to step three yet.
I'm not,
Step
I'm not,
three.
I'm not, but the reason I know why I would sacrifice so much more than I did to transition to a healthy, scalable business, because I'm kind of living the scalable business life now, and I know what that looks like. And so I would have been even more aggressive. And so the cool thing is we're going to give you the steps and strategies to really that are tried and true, right? These are things that a lot of our coaches are either doing or have done. And so knowing what we know, I would have sacrificed even more. And so we talk about Dave Ramsey some in here, and why do people sell the truck, or why do people sell the car? Because they know their debt snowball. They know like why they're doing these things, and they get so excited about it. They're like, yeah, I want that more than I want this other thing. And so, when we get your house in order in step two, we're gonna give you that financial freedom to go and invest in the things that we know are the most important.
I love that.
So you want to talk about step three?
So it's step one, get your time right, have time. Step two, get your head above water. Once we have these two things accurate, meaning, all right, I can pay my bills and I have time to work on the business. Now we can really start building the business. But until we have those, that's like the water line. And before we're there, like we're underwater, and we just got to get our head above water so we can breathe. So that's priority number one. And some of you are in a position, if you're that person, right, where your head isn't even above water enough to breathe. But once we do get our head above water, and once we can breathe, once we know that our bills can get paid, well, now what do we spend our next amount of time on? And that is we need to build a simple business. We need to build a business, craft a business model that will actually work and that will be simple and scalable over time. There's a reason why companies like Apple or Verizon or go across the board of the biggest companies in the world, why for the most part, they get really good at one thing. They get really good at just doing one thing and crafting a business model that's very simple and scalable. And so we always think, it was my assertion, Aaron, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's my assertion that far too often business owners build a business a little bit like I spent some time in Africa, and sometimes it felt like their homes were just bolted on. Like when they got a little extra money, they build this room, and then it feels like our businesses are just kind of like a hodgepodge of different eras and moments in our business, but it's not an elegant, simple business. And as a result, we find ourselves with our fingers in all kinds of different pies, trying to make money in all kinds of different ways. And we become just the center pin of that business, and we can't really grow and scale it. And so I think to myself, what can we do to build a simple business? But the simple business really should be the goal, right, Aaron? Like simplicity.
Yeah, I mean, it's like your example is like you would never build a house without a plan, right? Like and when you do build something without a plan, what does it look like when you're finished? Well, maybe you get lucky.
It's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
Is what it looks like.
Yeah,
it's like
you get
totally
lucky
obvious.
sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's doing one thing really well and being really good at that. When I'm coaching companies, and we bring them in for the first call or a couple calls, I just had one the other day, and the guy said, I'm right at 900,000 in revenue, and I was like, man, that's really awesome. We're going to get you to $1 million quick, right? Is what I'm thinking. And as I dug in a little bit, and we dig into the company a little bit, we find out he really has three $300,000 companies, right? He's got a maintenance division, he had a tree service division, and then he had like a little small project division, and each one of those made up about 300,000 in revenue. And I said, so awesome. This is great. We've got three strong little companies, right? Under one umbrella. Are you ready to go hire 3 managers for those 3 small companies? And hey, do you have about $500,000 in the bank? to do this? And he goes, heck no, I'm cash poor right now. I was like, well, we really don't have a simple business now. And we
Yep.
certainly don't, we can maybe put your name on one of those divisions, but we can't put your name on all three and scale that to $3 million because
you basically
I
have
look
to
at those as
3x. You have to 3x your work in a lot of those areas, right? You have to have a great marketing campaign for tree, and you have to have a great marketing campaign for your projects, and you have to have a great marketing campaign. And then you have to have a great system for selling and estimating trees. And then you have to have a great system for selling and estimating. So every one of those has to be like 3x. And it's hard enough to grow one business, much less trying to go 3 at the same time.
So let's go back to what our first 2 steps. So you have to find, 12 hours.
Oh yeah, 12
a
hours.
week, not 4. You have to find the money for 3 businesses. And you said marketing campaigns. Like it's one thing to find the time to design all the systems and things we need for 3 divisions, but now we got to fund 3 divisions, right?
Yep.
And $500,000 might not be enough, right?
And sometimes I think we do this because we look at the other big company in our neighborhood who's like got 50 million and they do all of the services. And we think to ourselves, well, that's the model. That's what we should pattern ourselves after. But at the end of the day, you can do that when you have 5 great leaders in 5 different divisions. That works at that stage in the game. But early on, the simpler, really the better. And by the way, when I say simpler, I mean simpler across the board. The simplest way to service, the simplest way to mow a lawn, the simplest way to, right? All of these little details of simplicity add up to creating room and space to grow.
Even if we're talking about a lawn maintenance company, we need to be very simple in that. Are we going to be a residential company or are we going to be a commercial company? Because, those are 2 different,
businesses, 2 different sales
setups,
models,
right?
2 different
trucks,
client
different
bases. Yep.
Yeah, right.
And
so, we need to simplify all the way down, like to what we sell and how we do it.
That's exactly right. And when you see it done right, like the companies who do emerge as the $1 million companies, the ones that make it out, my buddy Mike Callahan, who many of you might know, but Mike was showing me, he got all nerded out. He's like, do you know how simple we got? Like when we would pull up to the yard, we knew which side of the yard we wanted the truck on because it was simpler for our guys to get the job done. So, I mean, we want to build so step 3 is to build a simple business model, build a business model that is simple, build one that can scale. Because we want something simple because we want a business. We want to sell a product that's simple. We want to have fulfillment be simple. We want to have the sale be simple because we want to do it thousands of more times. And if it's not simple,
So you're talking about, step 3 is kind of 2 parts, right? You got 3A, which is we need to decide like where are we going to focus our time? What do we love? What do we like doing in the business? We're not going to direct you into one space. We're not going to transition everybody to a lawn mowing company or everybody to a lawn fertilization company. We're going to let you choose that, but we're going to push you to pick. Like, what do you feel you can scale the best? And that's kind of 3A, but 3B is all these things you're talking about now, which is like the systems and how do we hire people and what does the organizational structure look like for this model? What do our truck setups look like at this model? But probably the most important part of this 3B is the sales and systems. I mean, the systems and processes. So sales processes, hiring processes, lead, how do we manage a lead
when we were in that same meeting, remember this meeting, we were chatting, you had a competitor in the room, essentially a smaller guy. And you said, how long does it take you to get an estimate out? And his process from start to finish, what did he say? 3 days, 4 days?
So there were 2 guys, they were actually direct competitors to us. They were wanting the same exact client that my company goes after in the same market. And one guy said, I was about 3 to 4 days for me to get back to a client. The other one was very honest. And I appreciated him being honest, because he said, I'll be honest with you, I'm at least a week. And he goes, there's times where my voicemail is full. And he said this word for, he said, my voicemail is full and they can't even leave me a message.
Yep. And so here were two guys, and one might not get back to him at all. One's going to get back in 2 to 3 days. But if we want to go sell that product 1,000 times and it takes him 2 to 3 days to get back to that client, you realize how many compounded days that is. So the spirit of this step 3 is, as we're spending our 4 hours a week, 4 hours a day, that'd be great, 4 hours a week working on the business, we're going to start to look for ways we can make sure we have a simple business model, and look for ways we can simplify the work that we're doing. Because each time we simplify it, so in the same way, when I go sell a product and I make $100 a month every time I go mow, I'm storing and putting in the bank dollars. I want us to think of simplifying as a way of storing and putting in the bank hours. So every time I can simplify a portion of my business, I'm becoming time richer. And we need, in order for us to get out of the rat race of the business, in order for us to finally be free of the business and own it and not have it own us, is we have to store time. And so I want you to think about each time you're doing something, if it takes you 45 minutes to create an estimate, if you can do that same estimate in 25 minutes or 20 or 8, like all of a sudden you're gaining and storing in your book, in your log, I have 40 more minutes than my competitor. And that 40 more minutes times 1,000, that's like years of your life, right? That you're getting back each time you can simplify. So the third, step 1, get 4 hours. Step 2, get your personal and business house in order, so we at least know what's going on and we get our head above water so we can pay our bills. And then step 3 is, let's start to go about the business of crafting a simple business model with simple business systems, is step 3. Then step 4, we'll go through the last 2 quickly because most of you need to be working on 1 through 3. But step 4 is then we figure out and we start pouring fuel on by creating and designing an awesome acquisition model. So how do we acquire a new business? How do we do it at a price point that works within our business model? And how do we do it in a way that we can do it over and over and over and over again, so that we can really start to put gas on the rocket, right? Gas not on the rocket, in the rocket, so that we can really start growing this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was, I always look at steps 1 through 3 as kind of building the rocket. Like, if you were NASA, they're not worried about rocket fuel and pouring it on the launch pad until there's a rocket out there, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to really build something that one can handle. Like, imagine, like, and we've seen it tragically, where rockets explode. And we want to make sure that when we build this model, that it can handle the pressure of a heavy marketing campaign, right? A marketing campaign that is geared towards, generating thousands of leads and, hundreds and hopefully thousands of new clients every year. And the process of just flowing that through your business. And, the bad part about lawn care is, it's really all about February through May. That's when we get new clients. And so we're really even stress testing the business even more, because we've got like a 4-month window to really do our sales well. Sure, we pick up clients in other months. We all do, but I can tell you, as we've looked at, 60 different businesses and look at their scorecards that we compile with them, all the sales come in a really short period of time. And so, the worst thing we could do is start marketing your business when it's not ready. It would fail. And also we know that small businesses,
and if it doesn't fail, you're gonna have the same pain. Like, what's the number one complaint of clients in this industry is they're saying, I can't get a hold of anybody. I tried to call that company, I couldn't get a hold of them. Well, why is that? Because they've marketed, their marketing's outpaced their systems. But Aaron,
Yep.
if anybody calls your company, is there ever a time where they can't get a hold of you?
No, we answer
No.
we answer the calls live, right? Yeah.
Answer calls live every day. And so we have to build that system first, and then we start really putting the gas on the marketing. This is the
Yep.
weirdest industry in the world, because I've coached companies from all the kinds of different industries. This is one of the few places in lawn care and lawn care services where the major issue isn't lead volume. It's not an issue, but it's like most companies like, man, if we can figure out how to sell stuff. And here it's like, man, we have plenty of business opportunity if I just pick up the phone, right? The guy who's like, man, my voicemail box fills up. So step 4 is, once we do have the system and it's ready to roll, now we can start to really answer all of those phone calls. Then we can start really connecting with all of those clients. But we need a great acquisition model. That's step 4. Step 5 is simply that now we scale up. Now we start putting into place the other healthy systems that a business has. We start putting in place a great hiring model. We start adjusting pricing on a nice rhythm. We start just pruning and caring for the business that we've now built. And Aaron, you're still working on systems. You're still working on simplifying. You were doing it the other day. You're making a simple form for your staff.
Yeah. Step 5 is kind of just that healthy stage, right? We just want to keep, it's like steps 1 through 4 are kind of the big weight loss, and then you've lost all the weight. Now, how do you keep it off? How do you, and
Stay
that's
healthy,
staying healthy, and healthy businesses scale. I think too, like we talk about steps 1 and 2 are things we need to fix, and we kind of, they're one-time fixes probably.
Sure.
Step 3, we kind of go back to step 3 a good bit. We're always refining step 3, and maybe you grow one of your services up to $1.5 million a year, and you're like, you know what, we're ready to take on X, and so we're going to add a service, and we're going to hire the manager for that. And so,
well, and by the way, like the healthy step 5, right, is you're really revisiting all of these steps. You're constantly improving the amount of time that you're spending on the business. You're constantly improving your understanding of your financial situation and your debt position and all that. You're constantly refining the quality of your business. And then finally, you're constantly refining and improving your ability to go acquire customers. So stage 5 is really like the keep it off stage, where you're saying, how do we get better? The truth is, if you do stages 1 through 4 correctly, you're going to have all the tools you need to get to be at that $1 million company. And more importantly, we want you not just to be $1 million company, because I've met plenty of $1 million business owners who are miserable because they're buried. They may have a lot of money, but they're very short on time. And so we want you not just to be $1 million business owner. We want you to have a simple $1 million business. And that simple $1 million business means that it allows you to have not only a bunch of money, but it also means you have time to spend it, time to use it in your life. And so, Aaron, I know this is like showing like a big diamond ring, where that doesn't make anybody feel good about themselves when someone has a big diamond ring, but how much time do you spend in your business? Your $1 million+ business?
It depends on the week, but I mean, on average, I would think 8 hours or less a week.
That is what we want. We want to get to a point where you have a really, really successful business. So you haven't just been storing money, but through building a simple business, you've also been storing time. And as you start to store time in your bank account, in your calendar account, I don't know what you call it, but you start storing time, all of a sudden now I have a lot of time and a lot of money. And that's where real freedom comes in, where you get to do what you love, you get to do it with who you love. And that's what a true, like, that's the dream of at least most of the entrepreneurs I meet, is like, I want the dream of not only having the money, but the time to use it.
Yeah. And Dan, I mean, I think as somebody who's built a very simple business, and I get to spend time where I like it, like that's the important thing. Like, there were times where I really didn't like my business over the last 27 years. And I think, now there's things that we do that I don't want to have to do, in fairness. And I don't, those responsibilities do fall to someone else. They get taken care of. We don't ignore anything, but I get to spend my time in the areas, one, where I'm the strongest. And I think in a lot of ways, my time spent in the business today is probably better than maybe when I was full-time for the business, right? The people that work with me and that we work with probably get better time from me at this point, even though it's technically less time. My time is better spent, and it's for me, it's on things that I like doing, I love doing, and I'm strong at doing. So that's the beauty of that.
That's the dream. That's the dream that we want to share here on the Simple Growth Business Podcast, because we want to help as many people as we possibly can. Genuinely, like Aaron and I are both in a position where we don't have to do this. Like our families are taken care of.
Yeah.
We have businesses that are successful. But the reason we do it is because we actually legitimately feel bad for those of you who are out there just grinding away in businesses that are complex and convoluted, whose heads are just above water. And it's not that we pity you. You're just fine. You'll be all right. But we do want to help if we can. And so that's why we are doing this. That's why and as you can tell, we're not pros. We kind of suck at it a little bit, but we're going to try. We're going to try to do it in a way that will be really helpful. And because we want to see more and more of these companies, thousands and thousands of these companies, get out of that day-to-day rat race of the business, get out of business debt where it feels like your time and money are already all spent before you even get them, and give you the freedom that you were looking for when you started the business in the first place. That's our goal. And so stick with us. We're going to keep recording. We're going to keep talking, whether or not anyone's listening, to be honest. And, but we hope that it's helpful. So thank you for being with us on the Simple Growth Business Podcast. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks.